the new park and the existing Dunn park.
Okay.
So you'd have, it would almost double
Okay.
the amount of park area.
So, where the playground is now would become part of Dunn Memorial Park? The new
Yes,
playground?
yes.
And then,
But it can't be the replacement for the playground that existed.
okay,
Because you can't use existing recreation areas to resolve a compliance issue.
so, the, idea of replacing, or coming up with the recreational equivalent for K through 6th
Right.
is something like a playscape type park in the woods in the back. Is that something that would be considered feasible for that
Absolutely.
age range?
So the terminology these days would be a natural playground.
Okay.
Back when we were all growing up, it was called the woods. But, you know, sticks and rocks and sliding hills and dirt, you know, that's a natural playground. So, you know, developing a natural playground could be the recreation equivalent of the old wooden infrastructure.
And that's something where we could, I'm sorry, I'm asking 3 questions instead of 1 back.
This is your last one. Then we
So,
move on.
okay. So that natural playscape, whatever the heck it would be called, we could apply to get funding for that in the June 27 round?
Yes, so
Possibly?
because the town requested a determination of obsolescence, you can use land and water to replace that recreation amenity.
Okay.
If this was a straight up conversion, you couldn't use land and water to resolve the conversion.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any restrictions, like, so if we wanted to put in a pickleball
Yep.
court,
Yes.
super popular,
Everybody's playing pickleball.
brings in lots of revenue, is there anything restricting us if we were to put in a pickleball park from collecting revenue?
No, so you can charge fees for a public park. Fees have to be in keeping with what other parks charge for the same type of service. And you can't charge non-residents more than twice the resident fee, but you can charge fees. Typically across the state, fees are charged at like municipal beaches, public beaches, not general playgrounds, but there's no reason, you know. Pickleball, yeah,
Huge
access.
moneymaker.
Reserving a time, yeah,
Yeah.
that could happen. And so pickleball, a lot of people like basketball. Probably there's a segment of the community that would like a basketball court put back. But you could redesign the. I'm just going to go back so we can look at the park boundary. So, you know, you could get land and water funding. One of the other things, so one of the questions that has been coming, that has been asked was, when I was here last, I talked about hiring a landscape architect. And a landscape architect is not a landscaper. A landscape architect is, the difference is between an architect who designs your house and the builder who builds your house. The landscape architect designs the park, a landscaper could build the park. Landscape architects, the general evolution of parks in the state of Maine, if not across the country, are the park is there because the land was available. It's maybe not in the best part of town, it's just where the land was open. And the recreation amenities were just put there because they fit. They weren't necessarily considered, the arrangement of recreation amenities wasn't necessarily considered in terms of how people use recreation amenities and the movement between these sites. So sometimes a pickleball court will come into a new park and it's not very popular because it's plopped right in a wrong place. Pickleballs are really noisy. So a landscape architect, so relative to a park like this, that's what, 40 years old, maybe? It's probably older than that. It existed before you applied for the funding. Frequently people look at this and have blinders on about what could be, because that's where the field is, that's where the court is, that's where the playground is. Doesn't mean that that's where it ought to be, or that's where it could be. So the benefit of having some kind of planning assistance is that, especially if the town's going to reimagine this space and think about how it could serve the needs of people today and into the future, that profession and that professional can help that process in terms of arranging things to maximize the usefulness of the developed amenities. Yes.
I was part of the original grant writing team and development team. So what I remember, I don't have all the documentation anymore, but we had matching funds with the donation of the property.
Right.
The money that was given only went so far.
Right.
We developed the access road, the parking lot, the ball field, the tennis court, and then we ran out of money.
Right.
It was fine with your predecessor, what we did. But it took us another 4 years to raise enough money to build the playground. So the Land and Water Conservation Fund did not fund the playground. The community did. So does that change anything?
You're not gonna like this answer, but no. Because what is not in the project folder is a project amendment. So what should have happened, my predecessor, who's John P. Shea, John P. Shea, what should have happened is that at the time when, so it makes perfect sense to use the donated value of the land to match the land water money. Great strategy. What should have happened at the time was a change in scope, modification for the project. So there should have been project 23-00621 that said, this is what our original plan was. Basically, we've run out of money, and this is what is actually going to get built. And there should have been an as-built project boundary developed at the end of this project. Pichet in '87 might have been starting to think about retirement. He's still around. But absent a project modification, we have to look at this as if everything was built that was originally funded. But, I'm here to say that we're.
So much more was used to fund improvements to
Yeah.
the park? Because I think we raised about $35,000.
Yeah. That's, way to go. That was a wonderful thing to do. But it's, I'm gonna use the old saying, I'm from the state and I'm here to help. I'm here to help work through this so that we can get to a good outcome. And there's ways so some of the ways are like a natural playscape is not really expensive to build. It's not gonna be $35,000, so, well, you guys just built a playground, but you're not building a playground for $35,000 today. You might get away with building a playscape for $35,000. We have options, but that's really good history. Thank you for that. That's missing from the project file. In the back and then back up front.
So, do we have the letter of obsolescence for the old wooden playground? Do we have that in our file? Are we all set with that?
I haven't formally responded to that, but the town has submitted that to me.
Is there a reason we don't have an answer on that? I mean, a formal letter on that yet?
It's just, I've got, so, remember that map that I showed where all those projects were all over the state? Close to 1,000 of them? When when the environmental stewards were doing that work, when they started, I've got 2 big file cabinets in the back of my office filled with land and water projects. And they were digitizing all of that, 60 years of paper records. And when they started, I showed them the bottom right-hand drawer where there were 40 non-compliant projects that were to the level of a conversion. And they worked from January until November, doing all the scanning and all the site work. They inspected projects all across the state and developed the map. And with little snickety grins on their face in November, they said, Mr. Beck, how many conversions do you think you have now? And I said, more than 40? And they said, you have about 170. And that was in 2020 when that project ended. And we've been inspecting projects since. I think we have well over 200 compliance issues to the extent where a conversion is needed, and and I'm the only one really working on resolving them. So but the better answer to that is that in the middle of the process, we started talking about all kinds of other things. So it didn't make sense to do
So it's still up in the air? I
It's
guess
still-
that's my question.
It's still valid, and it can be approved.
It could be, but.
Yes,
doesn't
it will be
mean-
approved.
Okay.
But it doesn't make sense to approve that out of the context of everything else that might happen at the park. So, for example, we don't need to approve a determination of obsolescence if as part of this project, the town is saying, well, because if you're just replacing a recreation amenity, kind of upgrading it and changing it. So you have one playground, you're gonna move to a different playground. We don't need to do a determination of obsolescence because you're just kind of adding something in a different place.
But you had to because it was.
But you don't
a
have to.
problem,
But it's,
correct?
so that's weeds that honestly you don't have to worry about. That's where I'm saying, if you trust me, we'll take care of it.
Well, didn't you just say you work for the state?
I know. But not the federal.
Yeah.
The,
So let me just ask, how close are we to being complete with this playground project? I mean, do we still have hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're looking at in years to go? Are we 25%?
you're at the beginning. You're at the beginning. Because that's why we're here. We're talking about what does the town want to do and where does it want to do it.
But I want to know where we stand right now, though. I'm not asking where does the town stand right now as far as this project goes?
The town stands on that, in a moderate, non-compliant state. So,
75%, 85%, 95%.
No,
percentage doesn't matter. You know, there's, you're not fully compliant,
Okay.
but but it's still a park. So there's little pieces that have to be corrected. We've got to address what we're talking about, playground, the access, the courts. So coming up with a plan to do that is the best next step. Figuring out how much that's going to cost, what the investments in the new park need to be, is the best next step after that. And then figuring out where the funding comes for that is the final step. You don't have to apply for land and water money, but if you apply for land and water for an existing park, you get extra credit for an award. So why pay 100% when you can only pay 50%?
but we don't know if we're gonna get 100. I mean, if we're gonna get.
Well, you're not gonna get it if you don't apply.
Well, right,
Right.
but you have to pay, you have to.
You don't have to pay anything to apply for the funding.
But you have to have the money available if you get the grant. The money has to be there.
Correct. So,
Right.
right, so the town is gonna have to
So we
figure out.
already have to
how-
agree to it, whether we get the grant or not.
You're going to go through a municipal process that will say the town wants to apply for land and water funding. It has perpetual stewardship obligations, and that the town, because this is a reimbursement grant, will have to have the funding in order to pay these bills up front before getting reimbursed. Important to realize that you don't have to pay for the entire project before you can submit for a reimbursement.
But
Generally,
we're
we like
obligated.
3 reimbursements, 2 progress reimbursements, and then 1 final reimbursement. So you don't need 100% of the funds up front to start the project.
That's my question.
Right.
Where we have to do a raise and appropriate article in a warrant, if we put a article forth, because our voting is in June, so we won't know anything.
So, right, in
until
June.
In June, so, and that's application time.
Right.
For March, approximately March award. Can you accept a warrant, past warrant article as, yes, they have agreed? Because if we're not waiting until March of the next year, we could do a raise and appropriate for the following fiscal. You know what I'm saying? Because when we spoke before, March timeframe-ish is when you
So,
do an award. but nothing happens until July. So,
Well, kind of the other way around. So the next grant opportunity, so the good news is you've got almost a whole year to figure this out.
no, I understand that. Well, I understand, you know, will an article that is raise and appropriate at a town meeting, will that suffice?
Yeah.
And not have that money up front?
Yes.
I.e., you're not gonna check our bank
It's
account.
kind of like, right.
Okay, all right.
You're going to pass a warrant article and a certification of that warrant article that says basically the community agrees that the town's going to apply for this federal grant, that there's federal commitments to receiving the grant that you're already living with,
Right.
and that you know that this is a reimbursement grant and you may have to raise funds to provide for the upfront costs of that whole process. That doesn't commit you to do that if you don't get the grant. So it just says, it's just kind of a public awareness of, if the grant is awarded, this is the process that it's gonna follow through, and this is the commitment that the,
Right, okay. I just
town is
wanted
making.
to make sure
Yeah.
that a raise and appropriate article, as long as it's passed.
And we have specific warrant article language
Yeah.
that needs to be followed, that's posted on the website.
Yep, yeah, I saw some of it.
Yeah,
Would we have a better chance of getting the grant where we're out of compliance?
you've got a great chance of getting a grant, notwithstanding your current compliance issue. So, you know, again, you're not alone. A lot of parks that have been funded with land and water have non-compliant issues that are gonna be corrected, with the land and water. So, you know, I worked for 20 years in municipal government in the state of Maine. I know what the budget process is like. I know how hard it is to get budgets passed and funding for park infrastructure. And, you know, surprise, surprise, not every park, but most of the parks, municipal parks in the state of Maine are not as well maintained as they could be. How's that for nuancing that? To the extent that when I was doing inspections and I came up to a park that was really well maintained, it was really surprising. It was like, oh my word, this town really is pulling it off. More often than not, it was like, okay, the fences are falling over, the dugouts are heaving up, you know, the baseline, you know, the fence line for the tennis court is covered with trees. That's average. You know, so you guys are kind of average. It's not a knock against you in the grant application process. And again, because you're using land and water to renovate an existing land and water fund assisted site, you get extra bonus points. So we kind of, you know, we understand. And we want these parks to be viable and attractive and a resource for the community. So technically, could we be, you know, hard-nosed about compliance and say, no, you're not gonna get a grant until you bring it up to snuff the way it was funded 40 years ago? Yeah, we could do that, not gonna do that, that's crazy. So again, we're gonna help. And the land water program is here to help. And really what we need, so going back to a landscape architect, you don't have to do it one way or the other. I recommend it because, and it's gonna cost you a little money, but the money that you spend on that professional is eligible for match or reimbursement should you get an award. The money that you spend on that profession will position you better for award because you'll have a better plan and a better budget to do what you need to do. And therefore you'll be applying for the amount of money that you need to get done what you want to get done. The biggest reason folks don't get funded is because they don't have the details and knowledge of how much things cost to build. So their budget is either woefully optimistic for low costs and they're not asking for enough money, or they're just well, Doug's allowing everybody to ask for $500,000, so we're gonna ask for $500,000. And there's no, everybody that's reviewing the grant applications are park professionals and or landscape architects. So we know what it costs to build these things. And the reason most projects are not funded is because their budget doesn't match their vision. So if you can get to the point where your budget aligns with your vision, and you're asking for enough money to do what you wanna do, you know, there's no such thing as a guarantee in life, but that's a pretty good next to a guarantee for funding.
What other grants can you use to offset?
So, you know, again, I think this is only 8 acres. Not a lot, we talked a little bit about the Main Trails program. Theoretically, so there are other parks that have developed like a perimeter trail. You could probably get a half-mile perimeter trail on this site if you included both parcels.
Well, my question is last time we spoke, you had mentioned, I believe, enterprise grant, that could be utilized.
Oh, yeah, other town.
To offset,
Yeah.
that we could use, I believe it was the enterprise grant, but you said a couple others that we
Yeah,
could
block
utilize.
grants.
Yeah, to offset
Yeah.
even the landscape architect,
Right.
or even offset some of the cost of anything else that was.
Any other funding source that is not federal can be
Not
matched for
federal.
land and water.
Okay.
With the exception of community development block grant and the recreational trails program. You wouldn't go for RTP because we got Main Trails program, it can award more money. So if you were gonna do a perimeter walking trail, that's very popular in parks like this, where, you know, it's a wonderful community, nobody's looking over their shoulder for strange people. You know, you could drop your kids off at the playground, and then Graham and the stroller can get all their steps while, you know, the ball game's going on or things like that. Very common phenomena. And then the investment to develop that perimeter trail, as long as it's a trail, not a recreation access route, and I can explain the difference if you're interested, then that investment, as long as it's part of the land and water grant, is also eligible to match. So there's a lot of ways to, which I'll come back to, the best thing next step is to create a vision. So what do you want? What can happen here? And once you get that vision on a piece of paper, then we can start to look at what funding opportunities could be brought to bear to make that vision a reality.
Would the landscape architect estimate the cost?
Landscape architects, you know, for this kind of park development, it's gonna be $6 or $7 grand.
No, will they estimate the cost of
No,
each thing
yes.
that we put in?
So, well, yes, so, if you ask them to. So I would require your landscape architect, if I were doing this, I would say, we want you to help with the community visioning process. So to help with this, get everybody's interest, help with a community design, so after the engagement of the community, come back with, this is what I heard, this is what it looks like, this is what your park could be, what do you think? Yes, no, maybe, you know, let's go to the right, let's go to the left. And then I would ask that professional to, whatever the end result is, to provide to the town a proposed budget to make that world happen. They're gonna know what it costs to, you know, move tennis courts, or build pickleball courts, they're gonna know all that. And that's where, again, by having that investment up front, not only is it reimbursable or it's matched already in your pocket, but it makes your project more fundable because the budget that's developed is a realistic budget.
What are the requirements for restroom facilities?
There really aren't
We
any.
have some in the community center,
That
but
would
that
be
would be identical in that other.
Yeah, but that's fine. We don't need, the language in the law is a little funny because it presupposes that rest areas are gonna be developed at every park, which is aspirational. Not every park needs a restroom. So, you know, having the town office and community center with restrooms available, perfect.
Okay.
You don't need to duplicate that. Here, and then here, and then there.
Are there stipulations associated with all age groups being able to utilize these parks, handicap accessibility?
Leash.
Like, for example, this park is appropriate for kids K through 6. is there any stipulation that there's something for teenagers and something for, nothing like that, or, for all age groups?
Right. No, it's the park is your park to serve the needs of the community as the community saw fit.
Have you had, experience with other towns that did this, splash?
Splash
in the
pad?
ground?
Yeah,
Yeah, are those, what's? do
people
you have
love
any-
those.
What is it?
Yeah.
The splash pad. So instead of, used to be, it used to be dog
It's
run.
basically just a thing where
Oh,
Like
It's
kids
like
love
a big
it.
outdoor shower,
Yeah, okay.
you know.
Kids
Uh,
love it, the kids are constantly there at Schiller Park.
You know, the benefits of a
Yeah.
splash pad are that you don't need lifeguards. It's a water cooling playground. There's you can spend a lot of money on it. There are water quality maintenance requirements, so, the town would have to be aware of during this process, yeah, we want that. All right, what does it take to maintain that?
Right, that's what I was wondering about maintenance. Like,
So
that might be-
there will be water quality maintenance issues for a splash pad.
Do they tend to have a lot of maintenance issues, like, as they age, is it expensive to fix them? Like, I don't know anything about that. Like, but it seems like that might be a
Anything
potential
mechanical is
can
gonna
of
break
worms that we
down.
don't want to.
Anything mechanical with filters and water is gonna break down. So there's gonna be a maintenance schedule. And the part of, if you go to a landscape architect, I can provide a list of known landscape architects in Maine. You wanna find somebody that does municipal park infrastructure. There's all kinds of landscape architects. Some do like rose gardens in, somebody's enormous backyard. You don't want that landscape architect. You want somebody that's building municipal, city parks. And they can help answer the maintenance issues. But you could reach out to any of the vendors. And one resource for any of the vendors for parks and recreation and equipment is the Maine Recreation Park Association website. So merpa.org. And they have a commercial vendor list. And there should be playground and splash pad providers on that vendor list that you could reach out to and get quotes and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
That list was used for finding vendors for the playground.
Nice.
How long would it take to do the conversion if we did the whole thing?
The answer to that is too long. We're on our 4th compliance officer with the National Park Service in the last 5 years. Our most recent one just told us 2 weeks ago that he was leaving. Park Service is trying to create a single compliance office. That would be great, because then it's one-stop shopping. But that means that compliance office is serving the needs of every state in the country. And every state in the country has the same number of compliance issues that we do. So it's not fast enough. One of the benefits of doing this as a inclusive process of adding the adjacent land and access is it's actually going to be faster to modify the boundaries